For context, I have sleep paralysis issues sometimes, and I sleep on the bottom bunk in my dorm. I have a bit of a crush on a girl in my class. Last night, I was dreaming about her, and in my dream, we were laughing and giggling together in the halls. She then leaned in for a kiss, and just as we were about to make contact, I woke up while experiencing an orgasm. However, my sleep paralysis kicked in, and I had to lay there with wet boxers while the disembodied head of Zeus appeared above my bunk, with a puckered face like he was trying to kiss me. It was the weirdest 30 seconds of my life and probably the only sleep paralysis I have had that was simply just a moment of disbelief instead of being scary. In summary, I think I had an odd experience with Zeus last night. Anyways, what is your story? Story 1. I was at a public pool and noticed a girl drowning, so I dove in to rescue her, and for some reason, when I dove in, my hand ended up down her bikini, and it got stuck there. She was trying to swim away, but I couldn't stop touching her. This was actually my very first wet dream, and I think one of my only ones too. Story 2. Woman on top, ready to mount, and then she suddenly had flopping penises for breasts. First and only wet dream I ever had. Full-blown urination as I woke up. Story 3. The dream girl, that I'm quite sure I never saw in real life, was wearing some kind of white panties and telling me I can get what's underneath them if I... And then a whole list of chores followed. Story 4. I once had a dream where I was with this girl. Then she turned into a pizza. So I ate the pizza. Then the same girl came back into the room and got upset that I ate all the pizza. Story 5. When I was 14, I dreamed about 2 teachers from school I wasn't even attracted to taking turns going down on me. Part of my conscious mind still awake. Wow, this is kind of messed up. Subconscious mind/penis. Wow. Story 6. I was engaged in an intimate act with a transgender woman when suddenly it transformed into a foot. I was confused and realized it was my father's foot. He called me gay and then I woke up. Story 7. Mine was the night before my history test. This will be important. The first thing I remember about the dream is being with a very attractive girl. Then I woke up and was in the middle of my history test. My teacher was looking at me strangely, and I realized I was acting out inappropriately during the test. My teacher told me I had spent the entire test time distracted and that I had to finish the test in 15 minutes. I was completely desperate to complete the test. Then I woke up in my bed, very scared. By the way, I got 98% on that test. Story 8. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. Story 9. I dreamed of an inappropriate situation in class, and then my physics teacher caught me, so I closed my laptop. He told me to open it, and when I did, he started acting inappropriately as well. It was the weirdest dream I ever had. Story 10. I have had dreams where I am performing oral sex on myself to completion and have woken up with sticky underwear. I am not sure what it means, but I am a little worried. Story 11. I dreamt I was an Instagram model one day and that I was with Gucci Mane. In my head, I was like, something's wrong here, and it took me a while to figure it out. But then I woke up shuddering. Story 12. Never have had a dream that resulted in an orgasm. The weirdest sexual dream I have had involved my dog, or rather, a woman that morphed into my dog. That was a strange one. Story 13. I was itching for a blowjob, but my girlfriend was adamant it had to be at the bus stop. So we get to the bus stop, she goes to work, and suddenly, a bus stops. Everybody inside is looking at us, so I say, if we stand very still, they won't notice we're here. It works. The bus leaves and my girlfriend says, now it's not fun anymore, and leaves as well. Story 14. This happened the night before yesterday. I had a gross dream of being with a girl and her female dog. I started being intimate with the dog, which had the genitals of a female. I woke up feeling disgusted as anything, not knowing who I was after that. It was only a dream, and I felt so disgusted. Story 15. My dream was that I was in a bathroom and a hot girl bent over in front of me and asked me what I am waiting for. I went for it, but realized midway her vagina had a lot of big, mean, pointy teeth. I was scared she would bite my dick off, but I kept at it anyway. The dream me is definitely more courageous than the real me. Story 16. I had a dream I was in a high fantasy world, and there was a bad thunderstorm. I got struck by lightning, but it felt good, not painful. Traveled to my chest area, and I woke up in a sweat. I think I had a quick encounter with Thor. Story 17. My first wet dream was the weirdest, with me having sex with my first grade teacher, a beautiful woman with tattoos, in the middle of a jungle, and then getting eaten by a jaguar. Circle of life, I suppose. Story 18. Had a dream that all our windows in the house had been shattered mysteriously, and it was winter, so it was freezing cold. I was home alone and decided to warm myself up with a hot bath. I ran it and undressed, hopped in. Before I knew it, the front door swings wide open. I'm terrified, but I can't expose my naked body to the intruder, so I stay in the bath trying to stay quiet. The bathroom door slowly opens. It's Katy Perry wearing absolutely nothing. She gets in the bath and starts engaging in an intimate act. Wakes up. What on earth? Story 19. The weirdest wet dream I've had would definitely have to be my second one. I was around 12 at the time when I was just learning about sex and all that good stuff. In the dream, I was reading about anal and there was a diagram of someone's large intestines. It ended up coming out of the book and started to move around the room I was in. I was strangely turned on and eventually woke up to an abnormally large amount of semen in my pants. As a kid, I had no idea why I ended up ejaculating, and even to this day, I still have no clue. Definitely the weirdest dream I've had. Wet or not. Story 20. The only wet dream I've had that was memorable was when I was at a 4-week-long church camp around 2010. It was just tangentially related to church. We just went to chapel on Sundays. But this place was kind of old, started in the late 1980s, so a lot of the setups weren't really built with modern privacy concerns in mind. We were staying in those sorts of cabins which are on high stilts but are effectively just a box made of wooden frames and plywood filled with bunk beds, and the bathrooms and showers were in another building about 100 yards away from our cabin. What does that mean? You could not relieve yourself without everyone in the cabin hearing you, unless you went out into those disgusting toilets that smelled like hot urine 24/7. All of us were 12 to 15 years old in our cabin, so some guys were brave enough to do that, but 13-year-old me was horrified at the chance of getting caught. Several guys did, and they were tormented all week by the rest of us. And I didn't want to be surrounded by the smell of rotting urine, so I just didn't. Well, week 3 rolls around and my body is on high alert since that was the first time I waited more than a day to relieve myself back then. It's torture, but I am mostly able to ignore it. Everyone goes to bed one night during that 3rd week. Keep in mind this camp is in Texas, so it's easily 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit at any given time, day or night. Considering the heat, most of us are sleeping in underwear with, at most, a thin sheet since it's very hot. The only thing I can recall from the dream that night was that I was running through the woods naked, and my body was being tickled by grass. That was all it was. Grass. Grass tickling me. I wake up, the front of my boxer briefs absolutely soaked from the 3 weeks of build-up, and notice several people staring at me and the sounds of a lot of people giggling quietly. I had been moaning at a high volume the entire time. I had to do the walk of shame out of my bed, underwear very clearly wet, and just change in the middle of the room since we didn't exactly have anywhere private to change. I will never forget how humiliating that was until the day I die. Story 21. Had one where I was about to have sex with my first ex in a car, and right as it went in, she screamed. The scream was the scream from the It's Wednesday, my dude's meme. The worst part was her dad, who hated me, was watching from down the street as he was gardening. He didn't garden in real life. I woke up soaked. Edit. My first Reddit award is about a weird wet dream. Thanks, Reddit. Story 22. When I was 14, I had a dream where that ghost lady from the Call of Duty Zombies map, Buried, was grinding on me. And when I woke up, my pants were completely soaked. It was the weirdest and most satisfying wet dream I've ever had. Edit. I reposted this because I wanted the new members of Reddit to see this. Story 23. I was attempting to flee communist Russia, but the escape route was through a water park. I sneaked in and had to swim the wrong way in the lazy river. I was doing pretty well until I came to a strange underwater trench in the wall that led me to freedom. I swam in but got stuck, and in my claustrophobic struggles, my body reacted in fear. Definitely the strangest one I've had. Story 24. So this girl I had a thing for was flirting with me at school, and then things got heated and we started getting handsy and stuff when all of a sudden we're on a pirate ship for some reason. Then while I'm going at it with her on the deck, I feel myself reach a climax. Right afterward, the girl starts morphing into a boy I know. I'm straight, by the way. So my dream self stops mid-thrust, looks at where I'm watching it from real-life me's point of view, breaks the fourth wall and says, "That's strange, wake up." So then I jerk awake and feel my wet underwear. It was so bizarre. I just sat there for a good 5 minutes processing what just happened. Story 25. I was in a mosque or church or something, and for some reason there was poop all over the floor. I then went into the toilet where I had sex with a hot redhead. Very romantic. Story 26. I was still in puberty, maybe 14 or 15 years old. I didn't start masturbating until I was 20, so I had constant wet dreams, but they were always about girls. However, this one, which still haunts me as to why I ejaculated, was way different. I was in the middle of a street standing in front of a car with two kids in it, a boy and a girl. The boy was no older than 10 or 11. I had no control over myself, but for some reason, I took out a pistol and shot the boy repeatedly through the windshield, and I ejaculated as I shot him. The thing is, I didn't really orgasm or it was very weak. It all moved so fast that I barely felt it, but I did feel wet down there after I woke up. I was very disturbed by the fact I had a wet dream about murdering a kid, but I'm sure there's an explanation for it. Still weirds me out, though. Story 27. Fuzzy Lumpkins from the Powerpuff Girls. I had to distract him so the Powerpuff Girls could once again save the day. I haven't watched a second of that show since, and I couldn't look my parents in the eyes for a while. Story 28. The other night, I dreamed I was able to detach my penis from my body. Naturally, I put it in my butt. I got poop on my penis, and I was very disgusted. Definitely the most what the heck dream I've had in a long time. Story 29. Man, I must be very vanilla because my weirdest dream was when I dreamt that I started first making out and then being intimate with a cute girl from my folk dance class. That itself was not weird, but waking up right next to my girlfriend after that was quite weird, especially since she noticed my fidgeting around and moaning through my sleep. So I lied and said that she was in my dream. Funnily enough, usually if a woman hit on me in a dream, I had to reject them because I was in a relationship. Story 30. This post caught my attention enough to log into my alternate account. One dream I vaguely remember is where I was chasing down Emma Watson. Then I tackled her to the ground and started humping her from behind. Story 31. I was in a shop between the aisles. Then all of a sudden I'm transported to a room with no furniture except one of those chaise lounges therapists use. This room consists of flat beige walls, except for one being entirely a window with shutter blinds. The room is dimly lit by a light fixture on the wall just above the chaise lounge. And there I am, in the dream, passionately involved with a former work colleague of my mom. I woke up with damp underwear. I don't know why my subconscious chose her of all people. Story 32. The only real wake-up wet dream I've ever had didn't even involve sex. I was talking to a therapist, and he was making me admit I had an Oedipus complex. The moment I admitted it, I came. I've had a lot of weird sex dreams, but that's the only one in which I woke up wet. Story 33. On behalf of a friend of mine who doesn't use Reddit, he once had a dream with Emma Watson, Emma Watson's father, whom he didn't even know, not even a general idea of that man's appearance, and himself in a somewhat incestuous threesome. He told that to me and a friend in the middle of a lesson. To this very day, he still says it was kind of very hot. Story 34. I used to have the same recurring dream for a period that lasted probably 4 or 5 months. It was always me in a fight or in a World Wrestling Entertainment wrestling match. It all happens when I put someone in a headlock or knock someone out. Those were weird days. Story 35. I also have sleep paralysis, but this isn't related as far as I can tell. I had this dream where I was some sort of detective and this beautiful woman was murdered. As I was examining her naked body on a stretcher, I removed the sheet and she had male genitalia. Story 36. I was in the dining room with Cersei from Game of Thrones at my grandparents' house. Suddenly, she turns around, gets on her knees, and starts rubbing my private area with a broccoli-cauliflower hybrid. It was strange. Story 37. I was hitting it from the back about to finish, when instead of sperm it was mustard. She then proceeded to make herself a sandwich with it. Didn't want mustard for a long time. Story 38. It started out as me surviving in a zombie apocalypse. Then I got bitten. Suddenly, I was a part of some weird secret zombie council, and I started to hunt down humans and have sex with them, so I think I won. Edit. I forgot to add the part where there is this council meeting, and one of the other zombies is just looking at me with a slightly annoyed face because I just had this woman sitting on me. Story 39. I was the main character in a three-dimensional first-person Metroid-type game. I could charge my main weapon for a bigger shot in the game. I remember I wanted to charge it up for a long time to get a really big blast. I kept charging and charging and charging. And then I woke up. Story 40. I was having intimate relations with a not very attractive female friend on top of a car in our high school's parking lot, while the entire school watched and cheered me on like a gladiator. Story 41. I dreamt that I was making love to my fiancée in our bed, when suddenly my commanding officer from the Air Force burst into the room, demanding to know why I wasn't at work to issue weapons to the pilots going to fly combat missions over Iraq. I told him I was busy and went to go back to making love to my fiancée when suddenly we were in the tent I lived in the first time I was in the Middle East, and she was putting on her uniform and telling me I should do the same. Then my commanding officer and I got in my work truck, and he told me I could be with her later. The Air Force is even blocking me in my dreams. Story 42. There was a room somewhere, lit by a red light that did not quite banish all the darkness, just illuminating the center of the room in a red glow. In the center of the room was a chair, similar to those in a dentist's office but looking like it had been designed by H.R. Geiger. On the chair was a woman, naked and leaning back in such a way that her back was slightly arched and her legs spread just a little. Her face was turned away, hair tied up. She may have been connected to the chair, not entirely separate from it. I did not see myself, but was watching through my own eyes as I slowly approached the woman. As I did, her legs opened a little wider as my vision dropped down, and then I was inside her, moving up and through her body. It was all weirdly pinks and reds, wetness all around, and I woke up having ejaculated in my sleep and wondering what the hell had just happened. My one and only wet dream when I was a teenager and seemed pretty weird to me at the time.